everybody, and welcome to the Mindset Podcast. This week I'm joined by Maria McMahon. Maria was referred to me actually by a mutual friend when they found out that I was doing the podcast, because they knew that she had an interesting story to share, but also a wealth of knowledge that can really support others through their journey. She specialises in working with victims of narcissistic behaviour, and I think has a lot of pearls of wisdom to bring to today's pod. So, Maria, I'll hand over to you. Why don't you introduce yourself in the words that you would use?
Hello, and thank you so much, Lottie, for inviting me to have a chat with you today. It's a real pleasure. So yes, I'm Maria McMahon. I'm actually a clinical NLP hypnotherapist and a life coach. I've been doing hypnotherapy and NLP for a long time. I trained originally in the UK in 1993 to 96. Did a degree in psychology, all of that around that time. And then for a big chunk of time, I was out of the industry altogether. I was working in the corporate world. And then 5 years ago, I decided the contract I was doing came to an end, and I'd really kind of reignited my interest in personal development, self-help. So I did a lot of skills upgrade, and I started building an online business. I started out with making these very special hypnotherapy recordings that I call Cognifusion, and I have a bunch of recordings on my old website, attuneyou.com. And as things evolved. I started working with making smaller self-help programs for people and selling those, and then I evolved from that into working more in a coaching capacity, blending coaching and therapy. And just recently, I mean, I've always understood how to work with victims of abuse, sexual abuse, people who've had very traumatic childhood upbringings, dealing with things like PTSD, complex PTSD. That's always been part and parcel of it. But I started working about a year ago with victims of narcissistic abuse who just kind of happened to find their way to me through the nature of the work that I do. And it just became a little bit obsessed about it, because narcissistic abuse is incredibly insidious. It's incredibly prevalent. And when I first started learning about it, I was instantly transported back to when I was 21, and I'd worked in Germany in my carefree, fun days with my girlfriend. We were just working in a hotel, having fun, learning German. And we met a woman there who was absolutely lovely. She was really attractive, outgoing, vivacious. She was a lot older than us. I think she was in her early 40s, but because there weren't many English women in the little village on the Austrian border where we worked, we became friends very quickly.
Yeah.
And I remember her telling us, obviously she started sharing her personal story, and she was there on her own, and she started telling us about her husband and why she'd left him. She started telling us about him being what I now know to be a covert malignant narcissist. Of course, back then, it's a long, long time ago. I had no idea. I didn't even know the word. But I remembered her instantly when I started researching this abuse, because all the things she told us about how he completely isolated her. Because my friend and I, we're listening to this, and our mouths are on the floor, and we're saying, oh my God, why didn't you leave? Why didn't you tell someone? Why didn't you get help? All the typical things you'd say. And she said, it's really hard to understand it if you haven't been in this relationship. Because what he did was, he was so clever, he gradually isolated me from all my family and friends. Yeah. I couldn't go anywhere without his permission. I couldn't speak to anyone. I couldn't see anyone without his permission. We could only go out with him and his friends where he wanted to go. She said, and gradually I was like stranded on an island in my own. And of course, back then, Lottie, we didn't have the internet. We didn't have mobile phones or any of that.
That was totally my experience, actually. I had an ex-partner who's narcissistic.
That's right.
And it was that total slow, insidious kind of pull away from my friends.
That's it.
And, you know, we moved to a flat that was not quite on the bus route. You know, the buses didn't run of the evenings and things like that. As you said, it's a time there were no mobile phones. A couple of my closest friends, you know, when they moved, he like lost their phone numbers and things like that.
Right.
And suddenly I woke up one day and I had a baby.
Yeah.
I had no friends.
Yeah.
I was cut off from my family. I was depressed. And then he became violent.
Yeah.
But that was like 5 years later on. And it was too late to, you know, it felt too late. Obviously I did get out of that relationship eventually. But it was that I was deeply in love with that man as well, though.
Yeah, absolutely. This is it. And this is the typical trajectory of the narcissistic relationship. They love bomb you in the beginning and they make you addicted to them. And there's a very strong, solid psychology about why this happened. But just to quickly go back to Jilly, Jilly was her name because when I started learning about narcissistic abuse, my first thought was, oh my God, Jilly's husband was a narcissist. She was very, very lucky because the one saving grace she had was I think she was in accounting or finance, so she had her own money and she'd had the sense somehow through all of it to keep a separate bank account, which actually probably saved her life because normally what they'll do is they'll cajole you and coerce you and get you to share the finances, and then they'll rob you of all your money and you're left financially strapped as well. You really can be in trouble. So we said, my God, how did you leave? She actually planned her escape in the middle of the night when he was asleep. She drove across country. She stayed in a secluded location. She found a lawyer who miraculously, back then, because even now women struggle to find lawyers who understand NPD, she found a lawyer and she managed to get divorced. And she fled and went to work abroad, and that's how we ended up meeting her in Germany. And my mate and I at the time were like, oh my God, I can't believe this. And I said to her, what made you leave? I think even back then, the potential therapist was growing in me. And I said, what made you leave? What was the final nail in the coffin, so to speak? And she said that he used to be violent to her, but he would do things where he would leave no marks, which again is typical of coaching.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's not somebody coming back from the club drunk,
black eye. No,
never give you any. I think that's the common picture of domestic violence still. You know, in Western society, people have this picture of.
Yeah, exactly. And one of the things we used to do, and this has always stuck in my mind as well, because something about it struck me as just so vicious. It's quite a simple thing, but for anyone younger watching your podcast, they may not know what an LP is, but back in the day before CDs and tapes and MP3s, we had LPs. You know, you had the vinyl in the cover, and they're very, very sharp. And he used to take an LP cover and he would start hitting her in the temple with it, hitting her really, and she said it was excruciating, but because she had lush, thick hair, it would never show. Yeah. So that's one of the things he'd do. And he would do other things, like he would catch under her armpit here, and where it's very, very soft and vulnerable, and he'd pinch it really tight so it would be bleeding and bruised. Yeah. Just lots of stuff like that. But she said one night he got really violent and he knocked her over and she managed to stumble back up, and she said, I just looked in his eyes, and she said, and I knew in that moment that if I didn't get out, that he was going to kill me. Yeah. I get emotional even now thinking about it.
My experience was very similar, actually. So with me, I had realised, I kind of had a realisation of what was going on, and I'll share that maybe a little while later. But he was due to be going to Las Vegas in the kind of May, June time for a conference, and I had literally started hoarding toiletries, things like that, to run away while he was away. because he had control of all the finances and stuff like that. So I knew I was going to be like homeless or whatever with a baby. So it started hoarding. But actually there was a situation of extreme violence in the March. Again, no marks left. But it was extreme violence, a kind of 5-hour assault. And I knew that was it. I knew if I stayed, the next time I would die. Yeah.
And it gave me the chills then. It's still to this day, that's 40 years ago. It still gives me the chills. And there's an anger in me about it, that these people do this to other people, because as we both know, it's not just women who suffer. Men have also been suffering through it, and so I do acknowledge that, although I work solely with women.
And also it's not just in romantic relationships that we can be affected by this, right? You know, narcissists walk in all aspects of our life. So it could be a work relationship, it could be a parental relationship.
Totally. They are hiding in plain sight everywhere. Lovers, partners, family members, you know, mother, father, common, mother's very common, brothers, sisters, you know, anyone can be, bosses, co-workers, even friends. They're just hiding in plain sight everywhere. So it came back to me big time with a rush, and I just felt this affinity with wanting to work with women, and I decided to niche and focus in this particular area, which feels right for me. And I'm to say enjoying it, it's kind of a strange thing, because of course I don't enjoy that women have suffered and are still suffering sometimes awful agonies, a lot of awful agonies. But what I enjoy is that I have the power with my skills to help them, and I've proven that with the clients I've worked with, and that to me is fantastic power to have, to help them to completely change the way they feel about themselves.
So what would you say if there is somebody watching this or listening into this right now, and they're thinking, oh, holy moly, I think my partner might be a narcissist, you know, what advice would you give them?
Okay, I would definitely give them some solid advice. The first thing is, if you're in a relationship and you think, like you just said, Lottie, I think, oh my God, this guy might be a narcissist, or this woman might be a narcissist, start researching. There is a ton of fantastic information online. I would, apart from referring you to me and my group and my YouTube channel, which I've just recently started, so there isn't as much on the channel.
And I'll put, if you're on the website, watching this on the website, I'll put a link to the YouTube channel underneath the interview. So if you're watching on the website, have a look-see down there, and you'll be able to find the YouTube channel straight through.
Brilliant, thanks for that, Lottie. I would recommend people go to my top 2 sources that I think are the best in terms of the quality of the writing, the research, everything that goes on there. There's Psych Central, which is, you know Psych Central. Okay, Psych Central, fantastic. Go there and look up anything on narcissism, you'll find everything. The other one, of course, is Psychology Today, which I have a background in that. I love. Fantastic resource. Start with those 2, so you're starting to get some really good quality information. YouTube channels, there are, as I say, mine's very new, but I'm just starting my YouTube channel, but there are some really good channels out there where you'll find solid gold information. So that's the first thing, do your research. And learn very, very quickly, but I'll tell you now in a nutshell, you're dealing with a mental illness. It is not you. You are not the problem. You're not crazy. You're not losing your mind. You're not stupid, sensitive, you know, any of those things that your narcissist will be telling you are. You're none of that, okay?
Yeah.
So throw all that out the window. You are not the sick one, but you're dealing with a mental illness, okay?
Yeah.
So
I think that's so key, actually. So my moment of realization, I'll share what my moment of realization was, because I think it will be helpful to.
Yeah, absolutely, please do.
And my realization was there was no right answer. So he came home from work today, and I could always tell by that point when he was in that agitated state. Yes. So he came home from work one day in that agitated state, and he said, have you been shopping today? And when he was in that state, I would sweat about the answers I gave, because it's like I wanted to give the right answer.
Right one, yeah.
So that I didn't get assaulted or berated, or, you know, a bit of both. And when he said, "Have you been shopping today?" it's like a light bulb came on, because I realised there was no right answer.
No answer, and you're absolutely
if I'd have said, "No, I haven't been shopping," I was in for it, because there was, you know, I had shopping and there wasn't the right food in. If I'd have said, "Yes, I'd been shopping," I was in for it, because I'd been out spending money, you know, and we were a young couple in our new home and everything else. And I just had that light bulb moment where I realised there was no right answer.
No right answer, yeah, that's a brilliant revelation.
And that was key to me, suddenly realising that that was all about him. It was nothing to do with me, nothing, you know. So I was little miss, I've got to please this man.
Yeah.
And I suddenly realised that he didn't want to be pleased.
He didn't, because you cannot do right for doing wrong, because as you so beautifully explained it, Lottie, what they want is fuel. They don't want things to be nice. You can't make them happy. The only way you can make them happy is by them making you unhappy. Because that way they're getting narcissistic supply, or fuel as it's also called, from you. So you cannot win. Now, there are ways to beat the narcissist. There are ways to get out.
You need the ice cream van in the background.
No, I'm talking.
An ice cream van going past.
Well, I have my dogs out on the front terrace to keep them. I'm hoping they'll be quiet. No, I can't hear it actually.
That's okay.
So you cannot win. You cannot win. So coming back to our tips that we give people, anyone watching today. So first of all, do your research. Go to those really good sites. Know that you're dealing with a mental illness. I think your tip that you've just given is absolutely fantastic. I might add it to my list.
Good. Yeah, just for me, that was like the light bulb.
No, you cannot win, because you are dealing with a mental illness. They don't think the same way. They don't. I'm not wired the way other people are.
Yeah.
So that's the next thing. The next absolutely critical thing that you must do for yourself if you're trying to escape and get out is find support. Now, if you can find that in your local community, do it, in your family or friends. But as we talked about in the beginning, you very often become completely isolated, because that's what they've done to you. But think through that. Is there someone who knows and loves you and trusts you, who will believe you when you reach out to them? And this is critical, that it is not someone that the narc has any contact with. Because what they also do is they triangulate, they smear campaign, they will lie about you, they'll do all of that. So make it someone that he doesn't know exists, and find a way to contact that person. And even if you say, "Look, whoever, I'm in a desperate situation here, I'm dealing with a narcissist, I need your help." Even just to listen, to just reach out, that's something vital step. Now, if you are in the situation, and I know there are women even in this situation who just don't have anyone. They don't have anyone because the narc knows everyone in their circle, and the narc is believed.
They're completely cut off. And what happened in my situation as well, actually, was there were a couple of times when he was violent towards me, you know, earlier on, and I confided in people, and then I went back to him.
Yeah.
So I felt that those couple of people that I could confide with, I'd kind of burnt my bridges, because they were like, "I'm going to leave him," and then I went back. Yeah.
And this again is all part of the cycle, and he's drawn you back in. That's hoovering. This is a very, very common tactic the narcissists use. And because they're so clever at what they do, and because they've got you addicted to them, and this happens again and again and again, and you're not the only woman. So many women, probably the majority, have been sucked back in, not just once. Some of them
not just once. Yeah.
No, there are many.
It's not funny. I can now and laugh, but it's not funny. I know.
Then what happens is, and it's just the reality of what it is. What happens then is, as you've just also wonderfully explained, Lottie, that bridge that you've built of trust there is now shattered, because your friend or confidant thinks, "Well, look, bugger me, you know, now she's gone back to him. Poof, it can't have been that bad, or maybe whatever. So
Yeah, absolutely.
what happens then that's even worse is that you've now strengthened tenfold the narcissist's hold over you, because he knows in spite of you leaving and all that, he still has the power to get you back. He's got you so hooked on him. And he's just, so he's in absolute joy over this. You've isolated yourself even more.
Yeah.
But even if anyone listening and this has happened to them and they're in that situation, don't give up, because this is part of the process. And anyone who deals with narcissistic abuse, as I do, understands this and won't judge you for it. And any woman who's been through it won't judge you for it, because unless they've walked in your shoes or they've studied it extensively, like I have, they cannot understand.
Yeah, absolutely.
But coming back to the issue of support, so absolutely, if you can find someone, do. If you absolutely have no one, then reach out to an online support group. I have a Facebook support group.
So let's put the link to that at the bottom of the post as well. I think that would be really useful. So again, if you're watching on the website, look down and you'll see a link to that Facebook group where people can connect with you.
Okay, perfect. So definitely reach out to a group like that, because you cannot do this alone. I think it takes a very, very strong woman, I will say this, to deal with a narcissist and live with a narcissist and survive it. I think it takes enormous emotional strength and courage. And what I like to do is to then get women to understand that that emotional strength and courage can be turned in your favor for you.
Absolutely.
That you can thrive and you can get infinite self-worth after narcissistic abuse. That's the name of my group, by the way. And women like you are proof, Lottie. You know, look at you now. You're running your own business. You're a successful online entrepreneur.
And I see actually my history as being what helped me to grow that resilience and that strength. So it's all key.
Yeah,
I think one of the things I did as well that was quite key, and it's maybe not the right thing for everybody, but I phoned the police and had him arrested. And because of that arrest, he was put on bail for kind of 5-6 months. And one of the conditions of the bail was that he was not allowed to the house. He was not allowed near me.
Yeah.
And that bought me the headspace. I think if I hadn't have done that, I'd have gone back.
Right.
So that was a really key thing that strengthened me, because it gave me 5 months to cut those ties, and it took that long.
Yeah. Oh, it can take longer, but I mean, congratulations that you did it and got out. And what I would say, again, coming to advice, what to do is all those tips that we've just talked about. The next one I think is absolutely critical is start believing in your own power to change. Start believing that this can end and this will end and that you're going to find a way, because the cycle of abuse stops the minute you decide deep down in your heart that enough is enough. That you are not going to take this anymore. Make that choice for yourself. And then it doesn't matter if it takes months. You will get out. And absolutely, Lottie, coming back to the police, I've known countless women who I encourage women, especially if you're facing physical violence.
Yeah.
Because while psychological damage really does massive damage over time and it can take a long time to heal, physical abuse can actually end in your death. And we were just talking about Dirty John, and it very, very well could have ended.
Have you seen that on Netflix?
Oh my God.
I don't know if anybody else watching has seen that. I binge watched that one.
Yeah, I don't want to say what happened because we cannot spoil that. Let's just say.
But it really shows you how that narcissistic relationship builds.
Yes.
In that case, it was incredibly swift.
It was, yes. We reached that point of going over the edge.
Yeah.
And look what happened. So we won't spoil it for viewers because it absolutely is a must watch.
Yeah,
I'm actually doing a live on it in my group next because I binge watched it the weekend as well. So coming back, physical violence can end in your death.
Yeah.
makes it the more immediate threat. Get out, get physically safe, get away from physical harm. You can then deal with the psychological fallout afterwards.
Yeah.
Go to the police, get a restraining order.
Yeah.
And the other, I'm going to give one more final piece of advice, because to me this seems so flipping obvious. And yet, I don't know, maybe I have a devious, conniving mind, I don't know, but it seems obvious to me. But so many of the women that I've dealt with just haven't done this, or haven't thought to do this. Okay? Your narcissist is being abusive to you every day. He's possibly sending you via text, emails. He may be involved in smear campaigns on your Facebook page. Yeah. Document the evidence.
Yeah.
Document the evidence and get it all stashed away, because that is proof to the people who may not believe you, family, friends, whatever, and certainly to the police. Don't be afraid. Hey, look, I have proof. This man is a narcissist and I need protection. So document everything you possibly can. You can even get crafty and get a voice recording app on your phone, and you can get them so you kind of, disguise it, because you've got to protect yourself so that he can't spy on your messages. You've got to protect your password.
That's the difficulty, isn't it? Yeah.
They know how to, they can sneak in and get all of these, so you've got to be really careful about that. God, we could talk about this for hours. But you can get an app, a simple app on your phone where you just hit it without him looking. And if you knew, you can be clever enough to put it in your pocket. You know exactly where on your phone, by touch, as if you were a blind person and had to do it. You know exactly, you hit it. So you record the abuse when it's happening.
Yeah.
It's really hard for anyone to believe, especially when the narcissist is one of those who's utterly charming, and this is what the covert narcissists are to everyone outside. And they think, well, he's always so lovely. He's such a nice guy. They just won't believe you. Well, hey,
I had the police say that at one point. It was about 2 years later. Actually, he continued to stalk me for many years. So it was a few years later, once I got out. But the police actually turned around and said, "Oh, he's a nice guy. He's got a good job. Cut him some slack."
Yeah. This is the thing. They are so clever at manipulating everyone around them. Even really, really smart people, they fool therapists, they fool lawyers,
absolutely.
They fool judges and police, as you've just said. This is what
keeping that evidence is a great thing to do for yourself. Even if you're not going to share it with the police, if you're at a time maybe when you've left or something like that, and you're thinking of going back, or being
absolutely.
Look back at that evidence, remind yourself of all the reasons why you don't want to be with that person.
I totally agree. In fact, I think,
excuse me,
I'm not sure today, but I've just published one about gaslighting and invalidation.
Yeah.
And it's one of the key traits, one of the key tools in the narcissist kit bag, is that they gaslight you and you start doubting your own reality. So that evidence is proof positive to you that, hey, he did say this, he did do this, I know I'm not going out of my mind. Always bring it back to grounding yourself in your own reality. And that really, really does help to keep your sanity. Because otherwise you start wobbling and doubting your own reality. And you've gone through huge psychological trauma, you've gone through trauma bonding, you've gone through cognitive dissonance. Never mind the more sort of normal emotions. Do you want to get some water?
No, I'm good.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you've gone through all those complex psychological emotions, as well as the raw emotions that we all feel, the betrayal and the sense of this horror of what the heck has gone on here,
Stupidity, right?
Stupidity, humiliation. Oh, there's a whole bunch. There's guilt, there's shame. There's so much. It's heaping guilt and shame and all of this on top of all the suffering you've already gone through. So it's an absolute broiling pot. And this is why you need help. You need to get out, you need to get help, you need to get support. And my final piece of advice, obviously I'm a therapist. And my final advice is, if you can and you've got the means, start working with a therapist. because that will help you to get through this much, much more quickly.
Yeah.
So I hope anyone listening finds those tips that we both shared.
Yeah, brilliant. I think definitely. Thank you so much, actually, for coming on and sharing that. And I think it is slowly coming up more on the public radar. The programs on Netflix. There's been all the Ted Bundy stuff on Netflix as well.
Right.
This is nothing new.
Yeah. No, Ted Bundy was more. Bundy was. See, narcissism is a spectrum of degrees, like autism, for example, and it's a pathological personality disorder that's all about self-absorption and self-focus. And on the extreme end, you have this covert malignant, and then just on from that, you have the sociopath. Yeah. And this is the extreme narc who becomes like Dirty John, John Liam, who becomes capable of murder. Yeah. Because they've gone to a point, they're pushed over, they are capable. Whereas a psychopath, he's just born to murder. He's going to murder. That's his whole reason for living. He's going to murder. So psychopaths, serial killers are all psychopaths. So Ted Bundy is not quite in the same league. But yes,
the same idea. I think it is. I think all this stuff is hitting on the public agenda more. That we can't.
There are these complex characters. Yes.
I think it's that we can't take it on face value. When you meet someone, do your research, find out about them.
Absolutely.
We could talk about this all day.
Oh my God, we absolutely could. Thanks
so much for coming on and sharing your personal wisdom. Once again, for anybody that's watching on the website, if you look down below, you'll see the links there to that YouTube channel and Facebook group. We will leave you for today and hope that you found this useful. Okay, bye now.
Thanks, bye.